Hello and welcome back to the Training Tom podcast, where I share the lessons I've learned, the challenges I'm currently facing, and the questions I have of my future self. And in today's episode, I want to dive straight into a challenge I am currently facing. So let's get to it. A challenge I am currently facing is related to my health. So the past 6 to 8 months has been a challenging period of time. I'm not going to go into too much detail because it's a bit of a long story, but to cut that long story short, I've been struggling quite considerably. I've been somewhat struggling with my health, and it's not been serious health issues. I've still been able to go to work. I've still been able to exercise to some degree, but it has placed some limitations on the way that I normally live my life, which has been quite frustrating for me. And it all started in June 2024 when I contracted what I believe to be COVID. It was a viral infection of some point, or viral illness of some sort. And yes, it wiped me out for about 8 to 10 days. I then got back into my usual routine, and then after 3 or 4 days of getting back into my usual routine, I picked up another viral illness. So over the course of the month of June, I was ill for between 15 and 20 days with 2 separate illnesses. And ever since then, I have been struggling with my health. I've picked up colds, flus. I recently picked up a mild chest infection that I still feel like I'm kind of getting over, and it's had a mild impact, but what might be considered mild for other people has been quite a significant impact on my life. So throughout last year, I had some investigations done. One of them was on my heart because I was having some trouble with my heart, or what I thought was with my heart. It was chest related issues, and the GP practice, or my GP, referred me on to a cardiologist, and I was able to get some tests done. Fortunately, it wasn't anything to do with my heart, which is some good news, and was some good news at the time. But the problems that I've been experiencing haven't gone away, and I'm still struggling with those things at the moment. And the latest train of thought is that it could be something to do with my gut. And as a frustration, that is something quite difficult to come to terms with, because I like to think I lead a very healthy and a very active lifestyle compared to most people. I exercise for anywhere from 5 to 12 hours a week. When I'm in my full training mode, I can be training up to 12 hours, if not sometimes slightly over that, per week. For that reason, I tend to eat what I consider to be a healthy, balanced diet as well. I've recently been focusing a lot more on my sleep, rest and recovery. So trying to get adequate sleep to allow my body to rest and recover from the training that I've been trying to do, but also just generally to help boost my immune system up and to help relieve the stress of day-to-day life. I've also had a quieter period at work as well, where the stresses of work have reduced, which means I feel like I'm managing my stress relatively well too. So all of those things together, I feel like I'm doing everything right, but my body is telling me otherwise. My body is sending me a signal that something isn't right, but at this moment in time, I don't know what that is. And some of the symptoms that I've been experiencing, like I mentioned earlier, was those chest pains. It wasn't anything to do with my heart, which is fantastic, but I don't know where those chest pains were coming from, and admittedly, I haven't been experiencing them over the past couple of months. A lot of the trouble that I've been experiencing recently has been related to my gut instead. And I won't bore you with the graphic detail, but it has made sometimes day-to-day life quite uncomfortable, but it's also meant that my energy levels are really low as well. I'm having to watch what I eat to see if what I'm eating is having an impact on my gut. And so far I haven't really been able to pinpoint anything in particular that has caused me some issues. But it's meant that my energy levels are a lot lower than they normally would be. And even doing some light exercise can make me feel quite tired. You know, if I think back to July, August last year, my energy levels were on the floor. So if 100% is me being able to deliver a training session at work, which is often what I have to do, where I'm standing up all day, I travel into London, I'm standing up all day, I travel home, and then I do a training session and I still feel like I've got energy. If that's 100%, I've been operating, or in June, July and August, I was operating at around 25 to 30%, where I was sleeping for 8 to 9 hours a night. I was then waking up feeling tired and doing 2 to 3 hours of work, sat at a desk behind a laptop, was making me incredibly fatigued. And for those of you that do know me, I normally find it very challenging to nap during the day. Some of those days in June, July and August, I was having to stop and nap purely and simply because I didn't have the energy to sit behind a laptop and focus and have the mental clarity to do the work that was expected of me. So that was very challenging, and I feel like my energy levels have picked up quite considerably from that time. But I would still say I'm around 20 to 25% away from my absolute peak, which is really frustrating. And the reason it's a challenge for me is because one of the ways that I manage my emotions and my mental health is through exercise. And I haven't been able to exercise the way that I normally would, and I haven't been able to exercise as regularly as I normally would as well. So what I would normally do had to be adapted, and also the frequency of how often I would do that has been reduced, which has meant that I've had to try and find other outlets. And one of those other outlets is journaling. So for Christmas, I was given and I asked for a nice journal. So some of you might be thinking, oh, Tom's just got like a notepad in his bag or on his bedside table. Nope, I asked for a nice journal. For those of you that might be watching it on video, this leather-backed journal that is on my bedside table. It's got good quality paper in it, and anybody that is like a stationery nerd like me would lose their nut over that. But it's really good quality paper, and it's a leather-backed journal, and it's just very nice to write in. It's aesthetically pleasing to look at, so it encourages me to write in there. And I have to say, the majority of the time it has worked. So the way that I've been trying to utilize journaling is at the start of the day, I wake up and I reach for my journal and I write how I'm feeling. And a lot of the time I don't feel great when I wake up in the morning. Sometimes I do feel okay and I write that in there as well. Actually, I'm feeling okay today. Let's see how the day goes. But a lot of the time I'm writing in there that I don't feel great. I either still feel tired, or I feel a bit nauseous, or my stomach doesn't feel right, or that something doesn't feel quite right. But I write that into the journal to, first of all, get it out of my mind. And second of all, so that I can reflect back on it at the end of the day when I do my second piece of journaling for that day, where I write how the day has been. I don't want to move on too quickly from that first journaling session, if we want to call it that first piece of journaling at the start of the day, because not only do I write how I'm feeling, but I also write in there perhaps something that I am looking forward to that day, or something that I'm grateful for, or just write in there something that gives me perspective on how I'm feeling. So I try to put a positive spin on it, is what I'm trying to say. Or I try to find something positive to end that journal entry at the start of the day. Then I come back to my journal at the end of the day, and before I read, before going to bed. And that's something else I've been doing to help with my mental health and help with my emotions as well. But I'll come on to that in a minute. The second journaling session doesn't sound right. The second piece of journaling that I do at the end of the day is then me reflecting on the day. So how did I feel throughout the day? And how did the day go? Did the day go better than I was expecting? Was it as I expected? Did it go worse than I was expecting? And if so, then why did it go worse? But again, I try and finish it on a positive note. I try and highlight at least one thing in the day that has gone well. One thing that I can take away as being a positive impact on the day, or just something that I did for somebody else, or something that somebody else did for me. So I try and highlight that positive thing to end the day as well. So I bookend my day with journaling, and I bookend it with something positive as well, because I've heard, and research suggests, that journaling can be beneficial. So to help manage that challenge I have with my health at the moment, and to help manage my outlets for my emotion, or my outlet for my emotions, I'm trying to journal. And like I say, some days it works, some days it doesn't. Some days I wake up in the morning and I have no idea what to write. And sometimes I'll even write that in there. I'll just say, I've got no idea what to write this morning. And then it leads on to something because I've just simply started. And in the evening as well, sometimes I just don't want to write in the evening. I just want to go to bed, or I just want to pick up my Kindle and read. But I still just write something in there. And it might be that today the sun was shining and that made me feel good. Or today I achieved everything on my to-do list. Or just writing a short sentence in there. Maybe it's even, I'm really tired, I just want to go to bed and have a good night's sleep. But writing something so that I keep that habit, or I try and make that more of a habit. So that's one way that I'm trying to manage this challenge of my health, and manage the challenge of and having an outlet for my emotions, is through journaling. Another thing is reading, like I mentioned. So I will often, or typically, I love reading autobiographies, and I mentioned that in my previous episode. I've read quite a few autobiographies because I like to learn from other people, and I like to hear their stories, because everybody has a story to tell. And this podcast is my method of sharing my story to tell. Or it is at this moment in time anyway. But one thing that I found with reading those autobiographies is they actually made me more alert, or more awake. And what I wanted to do was try and tap into a different part of my brain that would switch the logic and the thinking part of my brain off and allow me to escape to a different world. So rather than reading those non-fiction books, I actually tend to read fictional books before I go to bed. And that is something that I've been finding very beneficial, because it just takes me away from my current place, the world that I'm in at this moment in time. It puts me into a different place and allows my mind to switch off, which typically, if I look at my Garmin data, typically means that I sleep better as well. And even if I don't look at my Garmin data, I know that when I wake up in the morning, 9 times out of 10, if I've read the night before, A, I would have got off to sleep a lot quicker than if I hadn't have read, and B, I typically have a much better quality sleep and a deeper sleep than if I don't read before I go to bed. So those are two things that I am Implementing reading before bed has been something I've implemented for quite a long time, and I know that it works. Journaling is something that I'm trialing, and it's something that I've done in the past but not done consistently, so I'm trying to make it more of a habit and trying to make it more consistent at this moment in time. And in a future episode I will let you know how I'm getting on with that as well. One thing that I'm not very good at when it comes to my emotions and when it comes to managing my mental health is talking. And again, that's something that I'm trying to do more often now, is just talking about the way that I'm feeling. Because in the past I would bottle things up, I'd be really grumpy around the house and isolate myself from my friends as well. I'm trying not to do that now. And a lot of the time it is just talking to my family, my immediate family in my house at the moment. Sometimes that's talking to my friends as well and letting them know how I'm feeling. I find it very uncomfortable, and that's a challenge that I'm having to overcome or I'm trying to overcome, is just being more open with those emotions and more open with telling people how I'm feeling. Because if I think about the purpose of this podcast, one of the purposes is looking at my future self. Do I want to be the same person that I have been over the past essentially 27 years of my life, where I've perhaps bottled things up and been grumpy and isolated myself? Or do I want to be somebody that is more in touch with their emotions and talks to the people around them and lets them in to their life, lets them into the way that they're feeling and their emotions, and allows other people to help me? Typically I like to help other people, but I don't like to let them help me. So yeah, one of the other challenges that I'm working my way through is actually allowing other people to help me. Whether that's through sharing my emotions with people that are close to me, or whether that is speaking to my GP, because typically I don't like to speak to the GP and not get health issues sorted, but I don't see my health issues as that important or that concerning. Obviously over the past 6 to 8 months that's changed, and they have become more concerning. So I've had to go to my GP, and I've had to rely on my GP to help me and to send off for different tests and to wait and have the patience for those tests to come through, to have that test done, for the results to be delivered back to me. All of that's been quite challenging as well, because people that know me on a personal level know that I'm not a very patient person. I am quite tenacious and quite ambitious, so if I have a goal in mind, I typically get on and do it. At work, I'm a bit more patient, but in my personal life, I'm not very patient. So I'm having to learn to be more patient with this challenge with my health. So as you can hear, and as you can probably see, there are a few things that I'm trialing, maybe some other things that I haven't thought about trying that you guys can suggest to me to manage my emotions and mental health better with this health challenge that I'm experiencing. But also, just for that transparency, there is a health challenge that I'm dealing with at the moment. And one of the frustrations I have, or one of the reasons it is so challenging, is because I'm not able to live my life the way that I want to at this moment in time. And it's also making me doubt whether I will be able to achieve the goals that I've set for this year. One of those goals is a very big fitness challenge that I've set myself, that I will be releasing, or revealing, should I say, in a future episode. But there are very big doubts in my mind about whether I'll be able to achieve that at this moment in time, purely and simply because I'm not able to train in the way that I want to, and I don't know what my health condition is going to be like in even a month's time, let alone in 6 to 8 months' time, or later on in the year, should I say. So yeah, on the theme of this podcast of being transparent, trying to be relatable, and just sharing authentic stories, I'm not going to say struggling, I'm dealing with a health challenge at the moment, and it is making me have to adapt the way that I live my life and find other outlets for my emotions and my mental health. In a future episode, I'll give you an update on how that's going. Hopefully it's some good news and I can get back into my training. I can start living life the way that I want to. But at the moment, it's proving quite challenging. And like I say, I'm having to find those other outlets, and it's challenging me in other ways, which perhaps is exactly what I need right now, because it will, I'm sure, in the future make me a better person. But right now, I'm finding it very challenging, and I'm having to be very patient. I'm having to learn things that I wasn't anticipating learning at this moment in time. But that's life, right? Again, keeping on the theme of this podcast, that is life. I'm experiencing life for the first time. So yeah, that's what we're dealing with at the moment. In a future episode, I will update you. But thank you for listening. If you have been, I'm going to draw this episode to a close. As always, my name is Tom Regan, and this is the Training Tom podcast.